Has anybody stood out in the OTAs when you've been watching?
They have a quarterback who's pretty good. So
Tends to stand out.
I've heard that.
Yeah, he's pretty good. But I think, so in these situations, it's hard to, like, you can look at like a Josh Connolly, you can see the athleticism, right? And you can see the footwork. But you're not going to see him going, like, locking up a defensive end.
Right.
So it's hard, like, you can only go to a certain point with some of those with the linemen, right? We've heard a lot of good things about Daron Payne, but we've seen Daron Payne play since 2018. So what's it going to look like when the pads are on when the season starts? But where the guys that jump out to me are like the corners, the receivers, because like those are the ones you get more one-on-one work. And I know like Trey Amos is a guy that jumps out to me, and I think he's going to be a good player. I think Mikey Samuel in the slot has looked pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I think like he's definitely another one. Will Harris, very versatile. So you can see that. And then again, I mean, Jaden looks good. He had a really good day the other day, and just all the things that jump out with him, and like little things like maybe you're getting off the first read a little bit quicker than you did before. I mean, he was good with his progressions were really good before, but then maybe are you even a little bit better with that, right? Like, so some of the mastery of the position, so to speak. But there were a couple of examples of that the other day, just the ball placement. I think, like with a guy like Debo, very solid, frame. But what you just like, you can see the way he can use his body against certain guys. Like, but what's it going to look like once the season gets going? We've seen him obviously. So like, there are things that jump out like that. I'm trying to think, like, Noah Brown has looked pretty good. I think he was like, his loss was probably a somewhat underrated loss last year because I think because the dimension he has the offense, like he can make plays down the field, but also he drew a lot of penalties.
He drew a lot of PIs.
Yeah, and like those are unaccounted for yards in his stats, but like they matter. So, you see him. So I think there's Luke McCaffrey. Like I know they've talked about him, just running routes better, et cetera. But what you learn too is how this works. Like over the years, you hear a lot of things in the spring, and then you don't hear things in the summer or the season. So like you just want to see how does it translate or how does it move forward. But the Amos one to me and Connolly's athleticism, like that jumps. The other thing too, watching it the other day, like they're having Deebo Samuel with Austin Eckler returning kickoffs. Like that's a really good combination. And, I don't think teams are going to – both those guys are good at that. So, like that, they should have a really good kick return game because of that. So, little things like that.
John, there's been lots of blowback from listeners for Lattimore skipping OTAs. Is that warranted, or are people overreacting, or is it, like you said earlier, look, it's June 6th. People are losing their minds over something they shouldn't be losing their minds about. What's your angle on that?
Maybe somewhere in there, like – so he did this the last couple of years in New Orleans, where he didn't go to OTAs a lot. I believe he'll be here next week for the mandatory session. I don't think there's been no reason to think otherwise. The hard part, I'm sure, for fans is the way the injuries, they traded for him, didn't play great, you should be here. Like, I get that sentiment. The hard part, like from my end, what are the questions we have about him? Can he stay durable during the season, and is he going to play better? Well, we wouldn't have those questions answered right now anyway. You know what I mean? And so, like, as far as, like, getting to see where his game is at, that's hard. But I think from a standpoint of, they celebrated last year, like, the attendance was 100%. So that was really good. So I think, and that matters. But if he goes out there in the first game and looks really good, nobody's going to talk about this. If he doesn't, then I don't know that it's related to this. It could just be related to where his game is at. And I think there's some questions about where his game is at, regardless if he showed up this spring or not. I mean, would it be better? Yes, of course. But as when you talk to coaches, like they know it's voluntary.
Tunsil's not there either.
Tunsil's not there either. But his play hasn't dropped off. But he had been here. Tunsil had been here for a little bit for some of the work, and like Lattimore has not been there. Tunsil has been, at least some. So, and like I said, I think if Lattimore hadn't been hurt when he got here, maybe fans look at it differently because, like, okay, it's different, but this is what he's done. So, I don't know that there's I don't know that they were like really surprised that he hasn't been here. So again, like the questions I have for him is, can you stay healthy during the season?
Yeah.
And we wouldn't know that if he was here or not.